Why did the mountains always sound like they were breathing? Alex Reeves thought about that every time she took aim from a high ridge, the way the Afghan wind sighed through the rocks like a living thing. Down below, the valley shimmered in the heat, silent except for the soft click of her rifle's safety and the steady rhythm of her breathing. One heartbeat, two. Then the crack of the shot split the air like thunder. A fraction of a second later, the Taliban commander's head snapped backward in a fine red mist. He didn't even have time to fall before her scope shifted to the next man. Crosswind 12 knots. Mirage layer 1,200 meters out. None of it mattered. Alex's focus narrowed to a single point, the trigger beneath her fingertip, the weight of inevitability hanging in the air. She exhaled halfway and squeezed. The second shot came like punctuation. 2 rounds, 2 kills. Silence followed, heavy and absolute. Her spotter, Martinez, whispered confirmation, 2 for 2. But Alex didn't need him to say it. She already knew. Precision wasn't pride for her, it was responsibility. Every pull of that trigger meant someone else lived, or someone else didn't. She adjusted her scope again, scanning the valley floor. Then a flash at 3 o'clock. Movement, Martinez hissed. They've seen us. Alex caught the glint of metal, sunlight bouncing off a rifle barrel. A split second later, the crackle of gunfire erupted. Bullets tore through the shale around them. She was already breaking down her rifle before the second burst came, her movements mechanical, efficient. Time to move, she said calmly. No panic, no hesitation, just process. They slid backward down the steep slope, using loose rock as cover, while rounds whined overhead. She could hear the men shouting in Pashto, voices bouncing off the canyon walls. The air filled with the smell of dust, gunpowder, and something else, inevitability. Extraction now, Martinez shouted into the radio. Alex didn't respond. Her mind was already 3 steps ahead, calculating distance, routes, fallback points. Then came the sound that made her chest unclench for a second. Helicopter rotors. Blackhawk inbound. The helicopter crested the ridge, door guns spitting flame at the insurgents below. Change of plans, Alex yelled over the din. LZ's hot. Move to secondary extraction point. They sprinted, boots pounding over dry riverbed rock. The chopper hovered above, kicking up sand and wind so fierce it burned her skin. A rocket screamed past, missing by feet. Martinez dove for cover. Too hot, they can't hold it, he shouted. But the pilot didn't back off. He brought the bird in low, close enough that Alex could see the gunner gesturing frantically for them to move. On my mark, she said, 3, 2, 1, move. They broke from cover. The world became a blur of dust and gunfire. Martinez was hit a round to the leg and went down hard. Without thinking, Alex turned back, firing short bursts from her M4 to keep heads down. She reached him, grabbed his vest, and hoisted him into a fireman's carry. He was heavier than he looked, but adrenaline turned weight into motion. She sprinted, bullets biting at her boots, until the gunner's hands grabbed Martinez and hauled him inside. As she climbed in, a round slammed into her side, the impact spinning her halfway around. Pain flared bright, but training crushed it down. Go, 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 she shouted, slamming her fist against the cabin wall. The helicopter banked hard away from the mountainside. Alex dropped beside Martinez, already pulling a tourniquet from her pack. You're crazy, Martinez grunted through clenched teeth. You should have left me. Alex didn't answer. There was no need. She made her choice the day she earned her trident. No one gets left behind. Not ever. The pilot's voice crackled through comms. Heading to Sentinel, ETA 12 minutes. Alex pressed gauze into the wound and secured the tourniquet. Blood soaked through her gloves. Through and through, she said. You'll live to complain about it. Martinez laughed once, a short, pained sound. You've got the steadiest hands I've ever seen. She didn't respond. Her gaze was on the horizon, where the sun bled over the ridges, Afghanistan, beautiful and merciless. A land that made killers out of children and ghosts out of heroes. 6 months later, she was back in the U.S., standing at rigid attention before Rear Admiral James Harrington, the kind of man who had seen too much and trusted too little. The room smelled of old leather and coffee. Sunlight poured through tall windows, glinting off framed photos of battles long past. "At ease, Lieutenant Reeves," Harrington said, his voice gravel over steel. She relaxed slightly, shifting to parade rest. Her uniform was immaculate, not a wrinkle, not a speck of dust. Above her left breast pocket, a small gold trident gleamed, the insignia of a Navy SEAL, one of the few women to ever earn it. Harrington's eyes lifted from her file. "Your record reads like fiction. 3 tours in Afghanistan, 2 in Iraq. Top of your class in sniper school. Counterintelligence, fluent in 3 languages. Now a SEAL operator." He paused. "The question is, are you ready for a mission that doesn't exist on paper?" "I serve where I'm needed, sir." His lips twitched into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Good answer." He pressed a button on a remote. The lights dimmed, and a screen descended behind him, showing satellite imagery, a U.S. Navy destroyer cutting through dark waters. "The USS Liberty," Harrington said. "3 weeks ago, intel from this vessel compromised a SEAL operation. We lost 2 operators, barely extracted the rest. Someone on board leaked mission data to an unknown source." Alex's eyes flicked over the image. "You believe there's a spy on board?" "I believe," Harrington said slowly, "there's something worse, a sleeper." She frowned. "You mean Cold War sleeper agent?" "Exactly, KGB deep cover, planted decades ago." He turned toward the window, voice low. "We thought they were all gone. Maybe we were wrong." He faced her again. "You'll go aboard the Liberty under a new identity, Petty Officer First Class Alexander Reeves, Communications Specialist. Your mission: identify the leak, isolate the source, and report directly to me." "Understood." "There's more." He clicked again. A new image appeared, a man in his mid-40s, square jaw, the rank insignia of a lieutenant commander. "James Rodriguez, the ship's executive officer. He'll be your only contact. If things go wrong, he gets you out." Alex memorized the face. "My cover story. Routine transfer from the Roosevelt. 10 years of service, clean record, nothing remarkable." It was perfect, invisible. But one question lingered in her mind, pressing against her composure. "Sir, why me?" Harrington's gaze held hers for a long moment. Then, silently, he pressed another button. The next photo made her breath catch. A young SEAL team, rough faces, desert camo, and among them, one man who looked achingly familiar. Her father. "Lieutenant Mark Reeves," Harrington said quietly. "Your father served with me. He died on a classified operation 15 years ago. The mission was compromised by a leak. The same kind we're seeing again." Alex stood perfectly still. Her throat felt tight. For years she'd been told he died in a training accident. She'd never believed it. "Sir," she said finally, her voice steady, "are you saying this new leak might be connected to his death?" "I'm saying," Harrington said, his tone heavy with things unsaid, "the same enemy might still be out there. And this time you'll be the one hunting them." He handed her a flash drive. "Full mission parameters. Memorize, then destroy." She took it. "When do I leave?" Harrington smiled faintly. "You already have." That night Alex stood on the shoreline of Coronado, the birthplace of the Navy SEALs. Waves whispered against her boots, the Pacific stretching endless and gray. Behind her, the training compound loomed like a ghost. "The only easy day was yesterday." The words painted across the walls felt more like prophecy than motto. She remembered running this beach years ago, lungs on fire, sand grinding in her teeth, instructors screaming until her voice was gone. She wanted to quit 100 times, but quitting wasn't an option when your father's ghost stood behind you. Brings back memories, doesn't it? The voice came from behind her, gravelly, worn by decades of shouting over gunfire. She turned to see a man with silver hair and sharp eyes. William "Wild Bill" Carter, her father's old teammate. "Some I'd rather forget," she said. He chuckled. "Hell, we'll do that to you." They walked along the beach in silence. The wind carried salt and the faint memory of old battles. "Harrington briefed me," Carter said finally. "I'm your technical advisor off the books." Alex nodded. "Then you already know why I'm doing this." He studied her face. "You're chasing a ghost. I did the same once. Nearly killed me." She met his gaze. "Maybe I need to see where he fell." Carter looked out at the horizon. "Your father was tracking a man named Victor Oroff, KGB, code name the Professor, the kind of operative who didn't just steal secrets, he planted them, in people." She frowned. "You think he's behind this?" Carter's voice dropped. "Your father thought so, and it got him killed." The waves crashed louder now, as if echoing the truth between them. Alex watched the water and said quietly, "Then maybe it's time someone finished what he started." Carter smiled faintly, sad, proud, tired. "You sound just like him." A pause, then softly, "Be careful, kid. In this line of work, ghosts don't stay dead. They wait for you." Alex looked toward the horizon, where the first light of dawn touched the sea, cold, relentless, and beautiful. In that moment, she understood. Her mission wasn't just about uncovering a traitor. It was about redemption, for her father, for herself, for every name written on a wall somewhere that no one visits anymore. And as the wind carried the scent of salt and steel, she whispered the only words that felt true. "Sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts." Why did the ocean always look calmest before a storm? From the open door of the helicopter, Alex Reeves watched the Pacific stretch below like a sheet of steel. The USS Liberty appeared through the haze, a gray phantom slicing through the South China Sea, its radar arrays glinting in the sunlight. She'd been on plenty of ships before, but this one felt different. Too quiet. Too perfect. As the helicopter touched down, she felt that familiar surge of adrenaline, the one that reminded her she was alive, and that every second from now on would depend on how well she could lie. "Petty Officer Reeves," a voice shouted over the rotor wash. A young officer with a clipboard, baby-faced, nervous, hurried toward her. "Welcome aboard, ma'am. I'll show you to your quarters." Alex nodded, lifting her duffel with practiced ease. "Stay ordinary, breathe, blend." They moved through the ship's narrow corridors, metal floors echoing under their boots. The smell of machine oil and recycled air wrapped around her, sterile, claustrophobic, almost comforting. "You'll be in female enlisted quarters, Section C," the officer said. "Rack 17. Your duty shift starts at 800 tomorrow. Chief Petty Officer Harrison runs the comms section. Don't be late. He doesn't like surprises." "Understood." When he left her at the hatch, the noise of the corridor faded. Alex stepped inside. The compartment was empty for now, 3 high bunks, each with a small locker and the faint scent of detergent and metal. She set her bag down, exhaled slowly, and let her cover identity settle around her like armor. Petty Officer First Class Alexander Reeves, Communications Specialist, 10 years of service. Competent, unremarkable, invisible. She changed into her working uniform and decided to walk the ship, to feel its rhythm before the mission officially began. The Combat Information Center buzzed with subdued energy. Dim light, glowing screens, the heartbeat of the destroyer. At the center stood 2 men, one she recognized immediately from her briefing file. Lieutenant Commander James Rodriguez, the XO, sharp, controlled, the kind of man who measured his words in millimeters. Beside him, Chief Harrison, tall and lean with iron-gray hair and eyes that seemed to weigh everything they saw. Alex waited at the entrance until Rodriguez turned. "Can I help you, Petty Officer?" "Reporting early, sir," she said, coming to attention. Thought I'd familiarize myself with the layout before my shift. Harrison's expression stayed neutral. Initiative's good, he said flatly. But in my section, protocol's better. Your shift starts at 800, not before. Understood? Yes, Chief. Then get some rest. She was about to leave when Rodriguez spoke. Walk with me, petty officer. He led her down a corridor and into a small briefing room. Once the door closed, his entire posture changed. He scanned the corners with a handheld detector, an old-school countermeasure move. Only then did he say quietly, Lieutenant Reeves, Admiral Harrington briefed me. You're clear to operate. Whatever you need, I'll provide within reason. Alex studied him. The man who'd once given the orders that sent her father's team to their deaths stood 3 feet away, offering help. Understood, sir. Minimal contact, full discretion. Good. Chief Harrison is brilliant, but complicated. Keep your distance until you're sure who he answers to. Any specific red flags? Rodriguez hesitated. He served in East Germany in the late 80s. Records are heavily redacted. That's all I know. East Germany, her stomach tightened. Department 16's playground. I'll observe and report, she said. Use Protocol Sierra 7 if you need me. Direct, untraceable link to my terminal. He paused at the door. One more thing, Lieutenant, verify everything, even from me. She gave a single nod. Understood. When he left, the silence pressed in. The air on the Liberty felt heavier now, filled with invisible eyes. That night she lay in her bunk while the other women around her slept, the steady hum of engines beneath them like a pulse. She sent her first encrypted message to Carter through a disguised diagnostic routine. Initial observation complete. Harrison possible anomaly. Language patterns inconsistent. Will confirm. Then she lay back, staring at the underside of the bunk above her, remembering her father's face in the old photo, the smile that reached his eyes. If he'd known this is where the trail would end, would he have told me to follow it? Sleep came late and shallow. The next morning, the ship moved through calm seas under a clean blue sky. Alex reported to the CIC 5 minutes early enough to show discipline but not obsession. Petty Officer Reeves reporting for duty, Chief, she said crisply. Harrison didn't look up right away. When he finally did, his eyes were sharp but unreadable. You'll monitor standard fleet traffic on the secondary array. Mitchell will show you the protocols. Yes, Chief. For the next few hours she watched the rhythm of the center, the rotation of personnel, the cadence of voices. She learned more from silence than speech. Harrison moved like a man who'd spent a lifetime mastering control, yet sometimes his words came wrapped in an accent too faint for anyone else to notice, the soft inversion of sentence structure that screamed Slavic. At 13:20, during a lull, she quietly accessed archived comm logs. Her fingers moved as if performing routine diagnostics, but her eyes hunted for patterns. And there they were. Tiny bursts of data, milliseconds long, repeating every few nights between 0 and 400, hidden inside system pings. To most, they'd look like background noise. To her, they looked like messages. Old-school burst transmissions, Cold War ghosts in digital clothing. Her chest tightened. Whoever was sending them knew exactly how to hide. When her shift ended, Harrison approached. Adequate performance for your first day, he said, tone clipped. You're assigned to third watch tomorrow, midnight to 800. Different pace. Learn it. Yes, Chief. He studied her a moment longer than necessary, as though searching for a seam in her armor. See you then. As she walked away, she felt it, that prickling sense between her shoulder blades, the certainty of being watched. Dinner in the mess deck was a storm waiting to happen. The smell of reheated food and disinfectant, the low rumble of conversation, the metallic clatter of trays, it all blurred together into the rhythm of ship life. Alex collected her meal and scanned for an empty seat. The tables were packed. 4 young sailors at the far end noticed her, eyes lingering too long, smirks passed between them. She recognized the type instantly, overconfident, bored, looking for amusement. She considered walking away, but doing that would mark her, make her prey. She chose instead a small, empty table near them, set her tray down and began to eat. 2 minutes later, the tallest of them, broad-shouldered, sun-bleached hair, grinned like a challenge, swaggered over. "Mind if we join you?" he asked, already sitting. His buddies followed, surrounding her. "Ryan Miller," he said, offering a hand she didn't take. "And these are Thompson, Davis, and Wright." Alex kept her tone neutral. "Petty Officer Reeves, Communications." "Communications, huh?" Ryan leaned forward. "All that time in the radio room must get lonely." The others chuckled. She didn't answer, kept eating. "You must be good at what you do," another added, grin wide. "Not many women make it this far out." Alex looked up, voice even. "I do my job, same as everyone else." Ryan's grin tightened. "Come on, don't be like that, we're just talking." Then he reached across the table and placed his hand on her wrist. It wasn't hard, it wasn't violent, but it was control. "Relax," he said softly. "We're all friends here." She stared at his hand, then at him. "Remove your hand." The smirk stayed. "You don't mean that." "I do." His grip tightened. "It's just a little fun." Her movement was so fast that most people never saw it. 1 second his hand was on her wrist. The next, he was face down on the table, arm twisted behind his back, cheek pressed to cold metal. A gasp rippled through the mess. Trays stopped clattering, voices stilled. "I asked politely," she said quietly, "twice." Ryan groaned, trying to twist free, but her hold was surgical. No wasted motion, no excess force. Just control. "Let go," he hissed. "This," she said evenly, "is called consequence." She released him. He jerked upright, red-faced, wrist throbbing. "You'll regret that," he spat. Before she could answer, a new voice cut through the silence. "What exactly will she regret, Seaman Miller?" Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez stood in the doorway, flanked by 2 masters-at-arms. His gaze swept the scene, the frozen sailors, the overturned tray, Alex standing calm as a statue. "Nothing, sir," Ryan muttered. "Then you and your friends will report to my office at 700. Petty Officer Reeves, 7:30. Understood?" "Yes, sir," they answered in unison. "Good, now clean up this mess. The show's over." As the others dispersed, Alex sat back down, pulse steady. But one detail replayed in her mind, a flash of ink on Ryan's wrist when his sleeve rode up. A tattoo half hidden. Military, not standard issue. An emblem she hadn't seen since her time in Black Ops briefings. The insignia of Naval Intelligence's Counterespionage Division. When she glanced up again, Ryan was gone. The next morning, Rodriguez's office felt colder than before. He gestured to the chair opposite his desk. "Sit down, petty officer." Alex did. "Your account matches the footage," he said, flipping a folder closed. "Miller's being reassigned to maintenance detail for 2 weeks." "Yes, sir." Rodriguez leaned forward. "That joint lock you used, that's not Navy self-defense. That's SEAL close quarters technique. Where'd you learn it?" She met his gaze evenly. "Advanced defensive course at Quantico 3 years ago. Instructor was former Marine Recon." A pause, then he nodded. "Good answer, proportional, restrained, keep it that way." "Understood, sir." As she left, she caught a flicker in his eyes, not suspicion. Concern. He's hiding something, too. Midnight again. The hum of the ship was softer now, like it was holding its breath. Alex sat alone at her station, pretending to run diagnostics while her hidden program listened to the dark. At 03:01 hours, the signal came, a burst less than half a second long. She captured it clean, no alarms triggered. At 08:00, back in her quarters, She decrypted the packet on her modified phone. What unfolded made her blood run cold. Data about SEAL team movements, classified weapon specs, and an upcoming insertion scheduled for the following week. The same kind of intel leak that had killed her father. She encoded a message to Carter. Captured burst. Encryption pattern matches Cold War KGB variant. Department 16 will await confirmation. 3 hours later, his reply arrived through an innocent-looking maintenance update. Confirmed, Department 16 methodology, source possibly the professor. Proceed extreme caution. Alex's fingers trembled slightly as she read, Victor Orov, her father's ghost. Before she could process, a knock hit her door. She opened it to find Ryan Miller, the same sailor who'd harassed her standing there, expression tight, eyes scanning the corridor. "We need to talk," he whispered. "Not here. Deck 3, Section 7B, 20 minutes." Then he was gone. It could have been revenge, a setup, but instinct, that old, cold friend, told her it was. 20 minutes later, Alex stepped into the maintenance shaft. The air smelled of oil and metal. Ryan, or whoever he really was, waited there, sleeves rolled up, posture different now. Crisp, composed, trained. "You're not communications," he said quietly. "You move like someone who's been in Black Ops." She stayed silent. He rolled up his sleeve, revealing the tattoo fully, the insignia she'd glimpsed before. "Name, Lieutenant Daniel Hayes, NCIS Counterespionage. Miller's just a cover. I've been investigating leaks from this ship for 3 months." Her pulse quickened. "Prove it." He handed her a microchip. "Encrypted credentials, check them, you'll see." "Why reveal yourself to me?" "Because you're not who you say you are either," he said simply. "And right now, I don't know if you're part of the problem or the solution." Their eyes locked, two ghosts of different wars, caught in the same web. Hayes exhaled. "We're being watched, every keystroke, every transmission. Harrison's behind it or someone using him. If we don't move fast, someone else dies." Alex slid the chip into her pocket. "Then we move." For a long moment, neither spoke. Somewhere above them, the ship's engines shifted pitch, a low growl rolling through the steel. Hayes finally said, "You really a SEAL?" She met his gaze. "Not tonight." Then she turned and disappeared down the corridor, her footsteps fading into the hum of the ship, into the storm that was only just beginning. Why did trust always feel like the most dangerous weapon on a ship full of guns? The next morning, the USS Liberty cut through calm seas like nothing had happened. The crew went about their routines, chow line, maintenance checks, deck inspections, while below, two people who should have been enemies were learning how to breathe in the same lie. Alex Reeves sat in the dim light of the communications lab, headphones around her neck, eyes scanning encrypted data streams. From a distance, she looked like any other operator running diagnostics, but every keystroke was a step deeper into a secret that could destroy her or save what was left of her father's memory. Across the compartment, Chief Harrison's reflection glimmered on a console screen. He was watching her again, subtle, casual, but always there. "Reeves," he said suddenly. She turned calm. "Yes, Chief." He approached slowly, hands behind his back. "You've been running system integrity checks twice as often as regulation requires." "Signal interference spiked last night," she replied smoothly. "Standard precaution." His eyes didn't blink. "Good initiative, but unnecessary initiative draws attention. You don't want that." "No, Chief." He gave a faint smile, one that didn't reach his eyes. "You'll learn." As he walked away, her pulse returned to normal, one slow beat at a time. Harrison wasn't just suspicious. He was testing her, probing for weakness, which meant he was either protecting the leak or he was the leak. She logged off the system and slipped away, timing her steps with the rotation of the duty crew. The ship's corridors were a maze of echoes, metal walls whispering secrets in the language of footsteps and engine hum. At the junction near the aft bulkhead, she tapped twice on the pipe, a simple rhythm. A pause, then two more taps answered from below. Hayes. She climbed down into the auxiliary maintenance shaft, where the noise of machinery drowned human speech. He was waiting in the shadows, half in uniform, half in coveralls, looking every bit the sailor he pretended to be. "You check my chip?" he asked. She nodded. "Credentials match, you're clean." "Good," he said, exhaling, "because we've got a problem." He passed her a small data wafer, unmarked, military issue. "Pulled this from Harrison's console backup. It's not supposed to exist." She slotted it into her portable decryptor. Lines of code filled the small screen, then coalesced into a transmission log, outgoing bursts timestamped at 300 hours. "Same time as the ones I intercepted," she murmured. "Look closer." Each burst contained a compressed header, signature fragments, and one line repeated like a ghost through every entry. "Sigma 16. Her breath caught. "Department 16. Hayes nodded grimly. "Exactly. The KGB program that embedded sleeper agents inside Allied infrastructure decades ago. But that program ended after the Berlin Wall fell." He gave a hollow laugh. "You really believe that? Programs like that don't die. They just wait until the world forgets." She studied the code again. "There's something else. This routing, it's not external. These transmissions never left the ship." He frowned. "Internal loopback. Or dead drop. The leak, been talking to someone on board." For a long moment, they just listened to the ship around them. The low thrum of engines, the clatter of pipes, the echo of men laughing 2 decks above. "Who's your top suspect?" Hayes finally asked. "Chief Harrison," she said without hesitation. "He fits, but it's too neat, too easy." Hayes nodded slowly. "You think he's a diversion?" "I think someone wants us to believe he's the leak, which means the real traitor's hiding behind him." Hayes leaned back against the bulkhead. "There's a rumor going around. Someone in command requested a re-encryption of mission protocols. If those new codes are compromised, the next SEAL deployment's dead before it leaves port." Alex felt that name echo inside her. SEAL deployment. Her father's voice in the back of her mind. "Never let them touch the codes, Alex. The codes are life." She looked up. "We stop the re-encryption tonight." At 2300 hours, the ship's corridors were nearly empty. Most of the crew were in their racks, the hum of night watch soft through the hull. Alex slipped through shadowed passageways, her ID clipped to her collar, eyes sharp. She found the secondary data relay compartment locked with a biometric seal. Too secure for a simple comms technician, but not for someone trained in infiltration. Her hand moved with silent precision. A portable thermal scanner traced the locking circuit, reading the code pulse through the metal. 30 seconds later, the panel clicked open. Inside, blue light pulsed across rows of servers, the digital heartbeat of the ship. She pulled the wafer Hayes had given her and slotted it into the access port. Instantly, code streamed across the screens. Encryption patterns, transmission logs, ghost directories. Then, a hidden archive blinked to life. "Got you," she whispered. The file header read, Sigma 16/VORF/1989, current. Her chest tightened. Victor Orov. She opened it and froze. Photos, names, mission reports, some from before she was even born. Her father's name appeared again and again, linked to the same signature, Sigma 16. The file suggested he hadn't died on a routine op. He'd been targeted. Her voice broke in a whisper. They used him as bait. Then a sound. Footsteps slow, deliberate. She killed the monitor and stepped back into the dark. The hatch opened, and Harrison stepped inside, his silhouette framed by the corridor light. "Couldn't sleep either?" he asked softly. She forced calm into her voice. Just checking system diagnostics. I heard interference again. He stepped closer and the glow from a standby light caught his face, a faint smile there, but his eyes were something else. Cold, studying. Funny thing, he said. I was running diagnostics too. Found someone accessed restricted directories, the kind of directories only I'm cleared for. Alex didn't move. Maybe someone spoofed your access key. Maybe, his gaze didn't waver. Or maybe someone's not who they say they are. Her fingers twitched near her belt, half an inch from the hidden clasp of her sidearm. Harrison tilted his head. You know, Reeves, when I first saw you, I thought something's off. You walk like an operator. You scan exits without realizing it. That's not communications training. He took a step closer. Who are you really? For a second, neither of them breathed. Then an alarm blared through the corridor. Red lights bathed the walls. Intrusion alert, deck 2. Harrison's head snapped toward the sound. Stay here, he barked, rushing out. The moment he vanished, Alex slipped the wafer into her pocket and ghosted the other way. She ducked into a maintenance crawl space just as 2 armed MPs stormed past. From the lower deck, she could hear shouts, boots pounding, and the metallic crash of tools hitting the floor. She found Hayes waiting near the engine compartment. What happened? He hissed. I triggered something, she admitted. Harrison's on alert, we're burned. He swore under his breath. Then we're running out of time. Command's calling for a full systems lockdown tomorrow. Once that happens, nobody gets in or out without clearance. She nodded, breath steady. We need proof before then. He looked at her, really looked, the mask of humor gone. You sure you're ready for what we might find? No, she said quietly, but I need to find it anyway. At dawn, the Liberty cut through fog like a ghost. The sun bled over the horizon, painting the sea in muted gold. On the main deck, sailors scrubbed rust from railings, joked about coffee and shore leave ordinary life above extraordinary danger. Alex stood by the bow, watching the water, thinking about her father again. The same ocean that carried him away might now bring her to the truth. Hayes joined her, 2 cups of coffee in hand. He passed one over. You don't talk much. Neither do you. That's why we get along, he said with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. For a moment they stood in silence. Then he said, You really were close to your old man, huh? She nodded. He believed in honor, in doing what's right even when nobody's watching. I used to think that's what being a soldier meant. And now? She stared at the horizon. Now, I think it means losing a piece of yourself every time you have to prove it. Hayes was quiet for a long time. Then he said softly, Your father would have been proud. Most people would have stopped digging. She looked at him. I'm not doing this for pride. I'm doing it because I can't live with ghosts anymore. He smiled faintly. Then let's finish this. That night they made their move. The plan was simple. Access the command deck's primary server during the night rotation, extract the full Sigma-16 archive, and copy it to an off-grid drive Hayes had smuggled aboard. But plans only sound simple when you're not the one living them. At 100, Alex slipped past the security node, timing her steps with the patrol's path. Her heart beat in time with the ship's engines. She reached the server room without a sound. Inside, the air was cold, sterile, filled with the low hum of data moving faster than thought. She began the extraction. 30%. 40. 55. Then a voice behind her. I knew it. She turned. Harrison stood in the doorway, a sidearm drawn. I warned you not to dig, he said softly, but you couldn't help yourself, could you? Her hand drifted toward her holster, slow, deliberate. He smiled faintly. Don't, you won't make it. What do you want? She asked. I want to know how far you're willing to go for a dead man's secrets. He stepped closer, and for the first time she saw it, the faint tremor in his right hand, the tiny scar under his jaw. Signs of old surgery, maybe, or something else. "You're Sigma 16, she said quietly. He tilted his head. "Close, but not quite. The professor taught me well, he taught me patience." Then he lifted his sleeve, revealing a faded tattoo, the same insignia she'd seen on her father's old photo. Her blood ran cold. "You knew him," she whispered. "I trained him," Harrison said, "and when he stopped believing, I ended him." Her gun was in her hand before the sentence finished, but he was faster. A sharp motion, a flash, and pain exploded in her shoulder as his round grazed her. She hit the floor, rolling behind a console. Sparks burst overhead. The extraction drive was still loading 82%. Harrison's boots echoed closer. "You don't understand, Lieutenant. Your father was never a hero. He was one of us until he betrayed the cause." She gritted her teeth, pressing her palm to the wound. "You're lying." He smiled. "Maybe, but lies are easier to live with than the truth." The console beeped 100%, data complete. She hit the emergency discharge, grabbed the drive, and dove for the access ladder. A bullet ricocheted inches from her head. She vanished into the dark, pain burning through her arm, drive clutched in her fist. When she finally reached the maintenance bay, Hayes was waiting. He saw the blood, the drive, and the look in her eyes, and didn't need to ask. "Did you get it?" She nodded, breath ragged. "Everything, Sigma 16 or off my father." He took the drive and began the transfer. Lines of code flickered on the small monitor, proof of decades of buried truth. Then his expression changed. "What?" she asked. "Alex, this isn't just one sleeper. It's a network, active, embedded across the entire fleet." She stared at him, the weight of it settling like lead in her chest. "How many?" He swallowed. "At least a dozen ships, maybe more." The air seemed to vanish. For years, she'd thought she was chasing one ghost. Now she realized she'd been chasing a virus. "Then we bring it down," she said quietly. Hayes looked at her, tired but resolute. "That's the thing about ghosts," he murmured. "You can't kill what is alive." She met his eyes. "Maybe not, but you can stop them from haunting anyone else." And for the first time since her father's death, she felt something close to peace. Not because the war was over, but because she'd finally seen its face. How does a ship built for war become a prison? Alex Reeves didn't need to look far for the answer. It was echoing through the steel beneath her boots. The USS Liberty had gone into full lockdown, doors sealed, security sweeps on every deck, a cold, mechanical voice repeating. "Code Delta, secure all compartments. Unauthorized personnel will be detained." She and Hayes moved fast, cutting through shadowed corridors where the hum of engines was louder than the sound of their own breath. The data drive burned cold in her pocket, the truth her father died for, the secret Harrison had killed to protect. "Engineering bay's clear," Hayes whispered, checking the next junction. "But the forward hatches are locked. We'll have to loop around through storage." Alex nodded. Her shoulder still throbbed from the graze, blood drying beneath her sleeve. The ship's air smelled of oil and tension. "Think he reported you?" Hayes asked. "He doesn't need to," she said. "He runs the comms, he'll just erase me." Hayes gave a grim smile. "Then we erase him first." They reached a side compartment, a narrow room stacked with supply crates. She locked the hatch behind them and finally let herself breathe. Hayes opened his portable terminal, the small screen glowing blue against the dark. "Data's copied and clean. I can transmit a burst to NCIS headquarters, but I'll need a clear channel, and right now, Harrison's controlling everyone." "So we take control back," Alex said. He looked at her. "The primary uplinks in the comm tower, he'll be there." "Then that's where we go." Her tone was steady, but her hands trembled slightly as she reloaded her pistol. Hayes noticed but didn't mention it. Soldiers recognize ghosts when they see them. The Liberty's upper decks were different at night, stripped of noise, filled with the ship's raw pulse. The faint vibration of engines, the distant clang of tools, the whisper of the sea against the hull. Alex and Hayes moved like shadows through the narrow passageways. At one corner, a security patrol passed. Two men in body armor, rifles ready. They pressed against the wall, waiting for the footsteps to fade. Then a voice came through the intercom, Harrison's voice, calm, steady, commanding. All hands be advised. Suspected infiltration by hostile intelligence operatives. Petty Officer Reeves and Seaman Miller are considered armed and dangerous. Detain on sight. Hayes exhaled. Guess the honeymoon's over. Alex looked up at the speaker, jaw tight. He's rewriting the narrative, making us the villains. Then we better give him a plot twist he won't forget. They moved again, faster now, every turn more dangerous than the last. At the next junction, they encountered two armed sailors. Hayes stepped forward first, hands raised. Don't shoot, we're friendly. The sailors hesitated just enough. Alex moved. Two silent takedowns, efficient and quick, the kind that left no permanent damage but made a statement. Hayes dragged the unconscious bodies into a side compartment. You're not supposed to be that good for a comms tech. She gave him a ghost of a smile. Occupational hazard. He chuckled. Remind me not to play cards with you. They kept moving. Finally, the narrow stairwell opened to the communications tower, a cylindrical space lined with screens, cables, and the flicker of status lights. At the center stood Chief Harrison, alone, waiting. He turned as they entered, calm as ever. You brought company, he said. Good, saves me the trouble of hunting you both. Hayes raised his pistol. Drop it, Chief, it's over. Harrison smiled faintly. Over. You think this is about one ship, one code, one man's death? He stepped closer, unarmed, the overhead lights painting deep lines across his face. You have no idea how deep this runs. Alex aimed her weapon squarely at his chest. Then explain it. I don't have to, you've already read the files. He paused, watching her eyes. You know what your father really was. She didn't move, didn't speak. Mark Reeves wasn't killed because he was loyal, Harrison continued softly. He was killed because he hesitated, because he wanted to expose the program. He was Sigma 16, Lieutenant. And when the time came to act, he chose morality over mission, so we removed him. The words hit harder than the bullet that had grazed her. You're lying, she whispered. I wish I were. He trained me. I admired him. But the world doesn't care about sentiment. It cares about survival. And the network he helped build still keeps your country standing. Hayes stepped closer. You're saying the U.S. still uses Sigma 16 operatives. I'm saying your government never dismantled it, Harrison said. We just changed flags. For a moment, silence hung between them, thick, electric, impossible. Alex's gun trembled slightly. Then what are you, patriot or traitor? Both, he said, depending on who writes history. Before she could respond, the ship shuddered violently, alarms blaring again. Engine room fire. Section Bravo 2. All non-essential personnel evacuate. Hayes glanced at the display. That's not a fire, that's a diversion. Harrison smiled. Clever man. Then he slammed his hand on a console, and the blast door between them sealed with a deafening clang. Alex lunged forward, but the steel wall cut her off. Through the small glass window, she saw him insert a data chip into the main terminal. The screens flared red. He's initiating a data purge, Hayes shouted. He's wiping the archive. Alex grabbed a side panel, ripped the manual override open, and began rerouting the circuits. Sparks flew, the heat biting her skin. 30 seconds, Hayes called. She worked faster, sweat mixing with blood. Come on, come on. The panel sparked again, then the door groaned open an inch, just enough. She shoved it wider and fired once. Harrison ducked behind a console, returning fire. Bullets ricocheted off steel. Hayes rolled into cover, returning 2 precise shots. "We can't kill him, Alex. We need him alive." "I'm not trying to kill him," she said, and shot the console instead. The monitor exploded, showering sparks. Harrison stumbled back, shielding his face. Alex charged forward, slamming him against the bulkhead. They struggled, training against training, experience against fury. He tried to grab her wrist. She countered, twisting his arm until she heard the pop of a dislocated shoulder. "Why my father?" she shouted. "Why him?" "Because he cared," Harrison hissed, "and caring gets people killed." She drew back her fist but froze. For the first time she saw something behind his defiance. Not pride, not ideology, regret. He gasped through the pain. "You think you're different. Wait until they ask you to choose between truth and loyalty. Then you'll understand." Her hand trembled. She could have ended him right there, one strike, one squeeze of the trigger. But she didn't. She stepped back instead, breathing hard. "You don't get to make me like you." Hayes grabbed the backup drive from the console. "We've got the data. Let's go." They ran as the alarms roared louder, the ship shaking beneath them. Behind them, Harrison slumped against the wall, bleeding but alive. "You'll regret mercy," he called after her. Alex didn't look back. They reached the lifeboat deck as the emergency lights flickered. Smoke curled through the corridor, not real fire, but enough to mask heat signatures. Hayes sealed the hatch behind them. "Signal jammers are down. I can send the transmission." "Do it." He keyed the terminal, loading the encrypted package. Data streamed upward, decades of hidden crimes finally finding light. Then the console beeped. "Transmission failed," he said, frowning. "Signal interference. He must have set a secondary firewall." Alex's jaw clenched. "Then we send it manually when we hit port." He looked at her. "That means staying alive long enough to get there." She gave a grim smile. "I've had worse odds." Hours later, silence fell over the ship. The alarm stopped. The smoke cleared. The Liberty drifted under moonlight, a wounded giant pretending to be whole. Alex sat in the medical bay, shoulder bandaged, uniform torn. Hayes stood beside her, scanning the decrypted files again. "It's all here," he said quietly. Sigma-16 wasn't just Russian, it was multinational. Every side had its ghosts. She looked up at the ceiling. "So what happens now?" "We deliver this. The people responsible face justice." "Justice?" she repeated softly. "You really believe in that?" He hesitated. "I have to, otherwise what's left?" She smiled faintly. "Maybe that's what my father believed too." Hayes closed the terminal. "You should rest. We've still got 24 hours to port." She nodded, leaning back, but sleep didn't come. She kept hearing her father's voice, faint, distant. "Sometimes truth is heavier than duty." She whispered to the empty room. "Then why does it still feel lighter than silence?" Outside, the ocean stretched endless and black. Somewhere deep in its heart, old secrets slept, waiting for the next storm to wake them. At dawn, she found herself on the deck again, watching the horizon burn with color. Hayes joined her, quiet as always. "You think Harrison was telling the truth?" he asked. "About Sigma-16 still operating?" He nodded. She exhaled. "Truth doesn't matter to men like him, only control. But what he said about my father," she paused. "Maybe part of it was true. Maybe my father was part of Sigma-16. Maybe he did believe in something once before it broke him." "And you?" She looked out at the sunrise. "I believe in stopping the same thing from breaking anyone else." The wind whipped across the deck, carrying the taste of salt and rust. Hayes said softly, "You ever wonder what he'd say if he saw you now?" She smiled faintly. "He'd tell me to stand tall. Then he'd tell me I'm too stubborn for my own good." They both laughed quietly, the kind of laughter that comes after surviving the worst. For a while there was peace. Just the sea, the rising sun, and two soldiers who'd seen too much. Then a sudden boom shattered the calm. The ship lurched violently. Hayes grabbed the railing. What the hell was that? From below, black smoke billowed. Another explosion, closer this time. Alex's heart dropped. Engine room, he's not done. They locked eyes. No words, just understanding. Harrison was still alive. And the war on this ship wasn't over yet. What happens when the ghosts you've been chasing suddenly start chasing you back? The deck shuddered again. This time harder. Steel groaned like something alive and wounded. The smell of burning insulation filled the air, sharp, electric, wrong. Alex Reeves sprinted down the corridor with Hayes close behind her. Alarms blared in every direction. Red lights pulsed through smoke. All hands, fire in the engine compartment. Section Bravo 1 compromised. Sailors rushed past, shouting orders. The air was chaos, shouts, the whine of hydraulics, the metallic echo of fear. Engine room sealed, Hayes shouted over the noise. We need to cut through deck 4 and bypass the bulkhead. Alex didn't slow. He's trying to sink us. They turned a corner straight into a wall of fire. The heat hit like a physical blow. Flames chewed through twisted metal, feeding on oil and air. Hayes grabbed an extinguisher and fought a path through while Alex dropped to her knees, crawling under the thick smoke. Her lungs burned, her shoulders screamed, but she pushed forward. At the far end, she reached the emergency controls and slammed the override switch. The fire suppression system hissed to life, white mist flooding the corridor. The flames died reluctantly, curling away into steam. The smell of scorched metal lingered. Hayes coughed, his voice hoarse. He's setting off charges to erase everything, himself included. Alex wiped soot from her face. Then we find him before he finishes the job. They descended into the lower decks, past bulkheads that creaked under strain. The deeper they went, the quieter it became, just the distant pulse of engines and the hiss of pressurized lines. Somewhere ahead, a faint echo, footsteps. Hayes gestured. She nodded. They followed the sound through narrow corridors lit by the dull red glow of emergency lights. At the junction to the auxiliary control room, they found two crewmen on the floor, unconscious, not dead. Harrison had passed through. He's heading for the reactor compartment, Hayes said grimly. If he breaches containment, this whole ship becomes a tomb. Alex stared at the corridor ahead, long silent, like a throat-swallowing light. You ever think, she said quietly, that some people don't want to win, they just want to end the game? Hayes gave her a sidelong look. You're not one of them. I wasn't talking about me. They moved again. The reactor compartment door loomed ahead, heavy, sealed, warning labels peeling with age. The lock light was red, manual override disabled. He locked it from the inside, Hayes muttered. Alex's gaze shifted to the service duct overhead. There's another way. She holstered her weapon and pulled herself into the narrow space, crawling through darkness lit only by the dim red flicker of emergency beacons. Each breath scraped like sandpaper. When she reached the vent grate, she looked down and saw him. Chief Harrison, kneeling by the reactor control console, one arm still bound in a makeshift sling. He was typing, deliberate, methodical. A small explosive charge rested on the deck beside him. He's not running, he's finishing something. She eased the grate loose and dropped silently behind him, gun drawn. Step away, she said. He froze, then slowly he turned. You shouldn't have come here, Lieutenant. Shut it down. He shook his head. You still don't understand. This ship isn't the target, it's the signal. She frowned. Signal for what? For the others, the network. You destroy the Liberty, the world blames a mechanical failure, the perfect cover for Sigma-16 to vanish again. Hayes' voice came through her earpiece. Alex, we need that reactor stabilized. What's going on down there? She hesitated. He's trying to trigger a cascade, not an explosion, a broadcast. Hayes sounded confused. A what? A final message. Harrison smiled faintly. You're smarter than your father ever was. She moved closer, gun steady. You killed him. He shook his head. No, I followed orders, just like he did. We both believed in something bigger than ourselves. That's what loyalty is, obedience dressed as honor. Her voice was low, steady. You don't get to twist that word. Don't I? His voice hardened. You think your uniform makes you pure. You serve the same machine he did. You just call it freedom. She said nothing. Harrison's eyes softened, almost pitying. He wanted to expose Sigma 16, but when he realized it wasn't foreign at all, when he saw how deep it ran, he couldn't live with it. He tried to protect you. I made sure he didn't suffer. The words hit like a punch. Alex's vision swam. She wanted to deny it, scream that he was lying, but deep down, she felt the fracture. The small, terrible part of her that always wondered why her father's death never made sense finally had an answer. You killed the only man who ever believed in me, she whispered. He nodded solemnly, and you became the proof that he was right too. Her finger tightened on the trigger, just a breath away. Then Hayes' voice cut through the headset again. Alex, the containment readings are spiking. Whatever he's doing, you need to stop it now. She looked at the console, saw the numbers climbing. Harrison's hand was still on the keyboard. She fired once. The bullet hit the control panel, shattering it. Sparks exploded. Harrison staggered back, clutching his arm. The hum of the reactor stabilized, then leveled out. She exhaled. It's over. Harrison laughed softly, blood running down his sleeve. You think stopping the message will stop the truth? They'll come for you, Alex, just like they came for him. She lowered her gun, voice like stone. Let them. Hayes burst in moments later, weapon ready. He saw Harrison on the floor, the wrecked panel, Alex standing motionless. You okay? He asked. She didn't answer. Her eyes were on Harrison. He was still breathing barely. It's funny, he murmured. You look just like him when you're angry. She crouched beside him, her tone quiet, final. Then I hope it's the last thing you see. Harrison's eyes closed. A faint smile ghosted across his face, and then he was still. The ship's systems gradually returned to order. The alarms silenced. The emergency lights dimmed. But the air still felt heavy, as if the Liberty itself was mourning something. Alex and Hayes sat in the infirmary, both bruised, both exhausted. The data drive lay on the table between them, now their only piece of proof. Hayes looked at her carefully. You did what you had to do. She shook her head. That's what everyone says after they do something they can't take back. He leaned forward. You stopped him from killing 500 people. You saved the ship. I didn't save anything, she said quietly. I just postponed the truth. He didn't argue. Some silences are too deep to fill. Outside, the sea stretched endless, calm, deceptive. Later that night, Alex found herself alone on the mess deck. The same place where, days ago, 4 young soldiers had laughed, teased, and tested her. The same place where she'd first realized how invisible she could become. Now it was empty. The overhead lights flickered softly. She traced her fingers along the metal table, still bearing faint scratches from where she'd slammed one of them down. In the reflection of the steel, she saw her own face, tired, streaked with soot and blood. I don't even know who I am anymore, she whispered. A quiet voice answered behind her. You're the reason the rest of us still get to ask that question. Hayes stepped into the light, holding 2 cups of coffee. He set one in front of her. Black, he said, figured you need it. She almost smiled. You always know the right kind of poison. He sat across from her. For a moment, neither spoke. The hum of the ship filled the silence. You know, he said softly, there's something almost poetic about it. She glanced at him. What's that? He nodded toward the window where the faint stars shimmered over the sea. All that death, all that loyalty, all those secrets, and in the end, it's just two people trying to keep the lights on. She looked at the stars. You think it's worth it? He took a slow sip. I think it's the only thing that ever was. They sat in silence again. Then Alex said quietly, when I was a kid, my father told me something before he shipped out. He said, courage isn't loud, Alex. It's the quiet decision to do what no one will ever thank you for. Hayes nodded slowly. Sounds like something a real soldier would say. She smiled faintly. Yeah, it also sounds like something a fool would believe. He grinned. Sometimes the world needs fools. For a brief moment, the heaviness lifted. Then the intercom crackled to life. This is Captain Miller. To all hands, prepare for external inspection by Fleet Intelligence at 600 hours. Full lockdown protocols remain in effect. Hayes groaned. Great, that's our welcome home. Alex looked out the window. The horizon was black, distant lightning flickering across it, a storm brewing. Home, she said softly, doesn't feel like it. He followed her gaze. What does it feel like? Like the calm before something worse. And as if to prove her right, a single thought formed in her mind, sharp, cold, inescapable. If Sigma-16 was a network, Harrison wasn't the only one left. Hours later, long after the crew had gone to sleep, Alex sat alone in her quarters. The faint blue glow of her monitor reflected in her eyes. The data drive lay open on her desk, its decrypted content still scrolling. She paused on one line she hadn't noticed before. Operation Phoenix Seed status, active. Her stomach dropped. A list of names followed: active duty personnel, intelligence officers, embedded agents. And at the bottom, one line she couldn't breathe past. Handler J. Rodriguez. The XO, the one man she trusted. Her mind reeled. No, it can't be. A message pinged across her secure line, from Rodriguez himself. We need to talk. Observation deck 200 alone. Her pulse quickened. She reached for her weapon, chambered around, and stared at her reflection in the steel bulkhead. The woman staring back looked nothing like the one who had come aboard this ship. And for the first time since this began, Alex felt something she hadn't in years. Fear. The storm outside built strength, waves crashing against the hull like angry fists. The USS Liberty sailed on, lights flickering, carrying a secret too heavy for one ocean to hold. Alex Reeves holstered her weapon, straightened her uniform, and whispered to herself, not a prayer, not a promise, just a reminder of who she used to be. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts. And then she stepped out into the storm. Why does betrayal always arrive disguised as trust? The corridor leading to the observation deck was silent, too silent. The ship rocked gently under the weight of the storm, metal creaking like a living thing. Water hammered the hull outside, thunder rolling across the sky. Alex Reeves walked with purpose, her boots quiet against the steel floor, her pistol holstered but ready. Her mind replayed the last line she'd read from the decrypted file. Handler J. Rodriguez. The man who'd vouched for her. The one Harrington had said she could trust. The one who'd known her father. She reached the end of the corridor, her breath slow, measured. Through the small window of the observation hatch, lightning illuminated the vast black sea. Inside, silhouetted against the glass, stood Lieutenant Commander James Rodriguez. He didn't turn when she entered, just spoke softly. I wondered when you'd find it. Alex closed the hatch behind her, the click of the lock echoing like punctuation. You should have told me. I wanted to, he said, but wanting and surviving don't always line up in this business. Handler Sigma-16, her voice cut through the air. Was it you? He turned then, eyes calm, steady, and infinitely tired. It's not as simple as you think. She stepped closer. It never is. Rain lashed the glass. Lightning flashed again, painting both their faces in brief white fire. Rodriguez exhaled. Your father came to me 15 years ago, said he'd uncovered a shadow network inside naval intelligence, one older than either of us. He wanted to expose it, said it was rotting the system from the inside. And you stopped him. He shook his head. No, I helped him, I believed him. His voice dropped. But someone else didn't. Alex's pulse quickened. Harrison. Rodriguez nodded slowly. He was supposed to be the cleanup. Instead, he went rogue, killed your father before the truth reached Harrington. Her throat felt tight, and you just buried it. His gaze fell to the deck. If I hadn't, the program would have buried me. Sigma-16 was still active then, still woven through the fleet. We couldn't cut it out without killing the whole organism. You could have told me. I couldn't risk it. You were a child, and later when you joined they were watching you, the daughter of Mark Reeves. They wanted to see if you'd follow his path. She stared at him, disbelief and fury twisting together. So you made me your pawn. He met her eyes. I made you the only piece they couldn't predict. The thunder cracked again, closer this time. The ship shuddered. Alex stepped nearer, her voice low, dangerous. You think you get to justify this? 15 years of lies, my father's death, the blood on my hands. Rodriguez didn't flinch. I'm not justifying anything. I'm telling you the truth because you deserve to know before the next move. She frowned. Next move. He reached into his jacket, slow, deliberate, and pulled out a small black drive. Harrison wasn't the end. He was just one cell. When you stopped his signal, you stopped the purge. But the others know now. They'll come. And when they do, you'll need this. She hesitated before taking it. What is it? The access codes to Sigma-16's failsafe. Every handler, every agent still active. You can burn the whole network to the ground if you're willing to pay the price. What price? Rodriguez's voice softened. Exposure. The moment you use it, your identity, your father's, mine, all of it goes public. You'll be hunted by both sides. There won't be a home left to go back to. Lightning flashed again. For a heartbeat, neither spoke. Then Alex said quietly, You think I care about home anymore? Rodriguez gave a small, broken smile. That's what scares me. The intercom crackled suddenly, harsh, distorted. Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez, report to the bridge immediately. The voice wasn't the captain's. It was cold, mechanical, wrong. Rodriguez frowned. That's not Miller. Then came another sound, boots pounding in the corridor. Alex drew her weapon. They know we're here. He nodded. We moved now. They slipped out of the deck and into the storm-soaked hallways. The emergency lights flickered. The ship rolled hard under a wave, throwing both of them against the bulkhead. Engine controls compromised, Rodriguez said, steadying himself. If they take navigation, they can scuttle us. Then we cut them off first, Alex said. They descended 2 decks, passing half-flooded compartments. The air reeked of salt and burning circuits. Sailors shouted orders in the distance, confusion spreading like fire. At the junction to engineering, Rodriguez held up a hand. 2 armed men ahead. Sigma-16. He nodded once. Then we end it here. Alex moved first, silent, precise. The first man never saw her coming. She struck low, disarmed, and swept him to the deck in one motion. The second raised his rifle. Hayes appeared from the shadows behind him, slamming the butt of his weapon into the man's neck. Nice of you to join the party, Alex said, catching her breath. Hayes smirked. Heard the fireworks, figured you need backup. She glanced at Rodriguez. We're running out of time. Rodriguez knelt by the fallen men, pulling an access card from one of their vests. We'll need this to reach the bridge. As they climbed, Hayes whispered, So what's the story with him? You trust him now? Alex hesitated. No, but I believe him. Same thing. Not even close. They reached the bridge access hatch. Inside, voices urgent, muffled by static. Alex peered through the glass. Two officers were dead on the floor, and standing at the center, wearing the captain's uniform now soaked with rainwater, was a man she didn't recognize. A stranger. He turned toward the door as if he could feel her watching. His eyes were calm, intelligent, and ancient in a way that didn't make sense. "Who the hell is that?" Hayes whispered. Rodriguez's face went pale. "Oraf." Alex's pulse froze. "The professor." Rodriguez nodded slowly. "He's not a myth." The stranger, Victor Oraf, tapped the comm panel, his voice smooth as silk. "To all surviving crew, stand down. You have been relieved. The Liberty now serves a higher command." Alex exhaled sharply. "That's it. He's hijacking the ship." Hayes looked at her. "Orders." She checked her weapon. "We end him." Rodriguez grabbed her wrist. "No, you can't kill him." She glared at him. "Give me one reason." "Because if you do, the network activates failsafe protocols. Every handler, every agent gets a single directive: disappear or detonate." Hayes cursed. "Then what? We just let him go." Rodriguez shook his head. "No, we take him alive, and we end it the right way." Alex looked at both of them, the spy who lied to her and the agent who had her back, and realized the bitter truth. She trusted neither, but needed both. "Fine," she said, "then we do it my way." The storm outside howled louder, waves slamming the hull. Alex moved first, breaching the hatch with silent precision. Hayes and Rodriguez followed. Inside, Oraf turned slowly, unbothered. "Lieutenant Reeves," he said calmly, "I've heard of you." She froze. "From who?" "Your father." The air left her lungs. "He told me once," Oraf continued, stepping closer, "that if I ever met his daughter I should tell her one thing: the truth is not your friend." Her hand tightened on her pistol. "You're lying." "I don't lie," Oraf said gently. "I design truth." Hayes raised his rifle. "Step away from the console." Oraf's eyes flicked toward him, almost pitying. "You think this ends with bullets? I've been dead on paper for 30 years. You can't kill an idea." Rodriguez moved to flank him, weapon drawn. "Then maybe we bury it." But Oraf's hand moved faster than any of them expected. He keyed a small device into the console. The ship's lights dimmed. Screens flickered with cascading code. Alex lunged forward, tackling him away from the terminal. They hit the deck hard, struggling, her training versus his precision. He wasn't strong, but every move was surgical, calculated to disable. She slammed her elbow into his jaw, sending him sprawling. Hayes grabbed the device from the floor and tossed it to Rodriguez. "Stop the transmission." Rodriguez began working, fingers flying. "It's an open-loop, self-replicating data string. I can't stop it, I can only redirect it." "Then redirect it to nowhere." "I'm trying." Oraf laughed softly through a split lip. "You don't even know what you're stopping. That signal isn't destruction, it's insurance." "Insurance for what?" Alex demanded. "For the next war," he said simply, "and you're already in it." Rodriguez shouted, "Got it." Signals bouncing off deep space comm relays rerouting to black channels. "It's blind." Hayes exhaled. "So it's over." Oraf smiled faintly, blood on his teeth. "For now." Alex pointed her gun at him. "You're done, Oraf. Sigma-16 dies tonight." He met her gaze. "Sigma-16 doesn't die. It adapts, it becomes you." She fired once, a clean, deliberate shot into his leg. He went down, groaning but alive. "Then adapt to pain," she said coldly. Rodriguez secured the device. "Command's been notified. Harrington's team will intercept us in 2 hours." Hayes cuffed Oraf to a console. Plenty of time for a little chat. Oraf smiled up at Alex. "You look just like him, you know, right before I gave the order." She froze. "What order?" The one that sent him to die. Her breath hitched, a tremor so deep it hurt to breathe. She almost pulled the trigger again. Almost. But she didn't. Instead, she said quietly, "Then this is for him." She turned and walked away. The bridge fell silent except for the rain. Rodriguez looked at her as she stood by the window, the storm raging outside. "You did it," he said softly. "You stopped him." She didn't look at him. "No, I just paused him." He hesitated. "Alex." She cut him off. "The moment you told me about the failsafe, I knew what that meant. There's more out there, more Orofs, more ghosts. This doesn't end with a name or a bullet." Rodriguez nodded slowly. "Then what does it end with?" She stared into the storm, her reflection in the glass looking back, harder, older, haunted. With someone finally saying enough. Lightning flashed, blinding white. The ocean roared, and for a moment it looked like the sea was swallowing the sky. In that moment, Alex realized something her father must have known long ago. You don't win by killing the enemy. You win by refusing to become them. 2 hours later, Admiral Harrington's task force arrived. Orof was taken into custody. Rodriguez was detained for debrief. The Liberty limped toward Okinawa under escort. On the upper deck, Alex stood alone, rain soaking her uniform. She looked out over the dark horizon, feeling the weight of everything she'd learned pressing against her chest. Hayes approached quietly, his arm in a sling. "They're calling you a hero." She didn't turn. "Heroes don't lose this much." He smiled sadly. "Maybe not, but sometimes losing is how you save what's left." She met his eyes. "You staying with the agency?" He shrugged. "Maybe, unless you've got other plans." "I don't plan anymore," she said softly. "I just move." The storm was easing now. The clouds broke enough to reveal the faint line of dawn. Hayes said quietly, "You think your father would be proud?" Alex didn't answer right away. The light touched her face, soft and cold. Finally, she whispered, "I think he'd tell me I finally understood." Understood what? That courage isn't noise. It's silence that refuses to break. Hayes nodded. "That's heavy." She smiled faintly. "So's the truth." The first rays of sunlight spilled over the waves, washing the deck in pale gold. The ship moved forward, slow, steady, alive. And for the first time in years, Alex Reeves didn't feel like she was running toward ghosts. She was walking away from them. How do you tell the truth when the truth itself has been weaponized? 3 days after the storm, the USS Liberty limped into Okinawa under gray skies. Her hull bore the scars of fire and shrapnel, but she was afloat barely. The crew was silent as they disembarked, faces drawn, eyes hollow. Alex Reeves stayed on deck, watching the shoreline grow clearer. She hadn't slept since the confrontation. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Orof's face smiling through blood, whispering, "You've become one of us." Now in the cold dawn light, the words still burned. The dock was lined with MPs and naval intelligence officers. Black vans waited like open mouths. Harrington himself stood at the front, coat snapping in the wind. He looked older, wearier, but his voice was still granite when he spoke. "Lieutenant Reeves," he said, "you're to accompany me immediately." Alex saluted. "Yes, sir." Rodriguez stood a few feet away, wrists bound, 2 guards flanking him. He met her gaze briefly, no anger, no defense, just understanding. As they passed, she murmured, "Why didn't you tell me everything?" He answered softly, "Because you still believed in good and bad. I didn't want to take that from you." She looked at him, then at Harrington, and for the first time, she wasn't sure which one of them she feared more. The debrief room at Fleet Command was a tomb of glass and light. No windows, no clocks, just the hum of air conditioning and the faint buzz of fluorescent bulbs. Across the table sat Admiral Harrington, flanked by 2 intelligence officers. Files, drives, and transcripts were stacked between them. "Sit down, Lieutenant," Harrington said. Alex did posture straight, hands clasped on the table. You understand the gravity of this situation? Yes, sir. He opened a file. Your actions aboard the Liberty, while commendable in certain respects, violated multiple operational directives. You engaged an officer, discharged your weapon on federal property, and withheld intelligence from command. Her voice was calm. With respect, sir, command wasn't secure. Harrington's eyes flicked up. And you determined that on your own? Yes, sir. One of the intel officers, a man with neat hair and an emotionless tone, spoke next. Lieutenant, explain your involvement with Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez. Alex hesitated. Every word she spoke now would decide not only her fate but his. Rodriguez was my contact, she said carefully. He assisted in identifying the internal threat and neutralizing it. The officer's eyes narrowed. Were you aware of his connection to Sigma-16? No, she said, not until the final operation. Did he disclose his past involvement to you? She met Harrington's gaze. He told me the truth when it mattered. The officer exchanged a look with Harrington. The truth, he repeated, and what exactly is that? That the enemy isn't always wearing a different uniform. A pause. The hum of the lights filled the space between them. Harrington leaned back. Lieutenant, I've known you since Bud S. You were reckless then. You're reckless now, but you've also saved lives again. He closed the file. That creates a problem. She frowned, sir. You're too visible now, he said quietly. The Liberty incident will be classified top secret, but people talk. Reporters, foreign intelligence. Someone will start asking why a SEAL was undercover on a destroyer. Then tell them the truth. He smiled faintly. Truth is the first casualty of national security. Her jaw tightened. So you're going to bury it? Not all of it, he said. Just enough to keep the world from falling apart. Sir, Sigma-16 is still active. We can't bury that. He looked at her evenly. We're not burying it, we're controlling it. The room went cold. You can't control a ghost, she said softly. Maybe not, Harrington replied, but we can keep it on a leash. She rose to her feet. That's exactly what got my father killed. For the first time, Harrington's eyes softened. Your father understood the difference between sacrifice and sabotage. I hope you learn it too. Her voice shook with contained anger. He died believing he was protecting something pure. Harrington stood. Then make sure his daughter doesn't die proving it doesn't exist. The door opened. The two intel officers stepped aside. Dismissed, Lieutenant. Outside, the hallway stretched long and sterile. Hayes waited at the far end, leaning against the wall, arms crossed. They letting you breathe? He asked. For now, she said. He handed her a folded slip of paper. Message came through the secure line. No sender ID, probably your friend in cuffs. She unfolded it. The handwriting was familiar, sharp, deliberate. They'll spin this story until it forgets you. Don't let them. J.R. Her pulse slowed. Where is he? Hayes sighed. Classified location. They're interrogating him under seal. They'll tear him apart before he can talk. Probably, Hayes said quietly, but maybe that's how it has to be. She looked up at him. You sound like them. He met her eyes. I sound like someone who's tired of losing good people to bad systems. Then why stay? He gave a bitter smile. Because someone's got to stand between them and the rest of the world. Alex stared at the note again, the last words of a man who'd lived his life in the gray. They'll spin this story until it forgets you. She folded it, slid it into her pocket, and started walking. Where are you going? Hayes called. Home, she said, or whatever's left of it. 2 weeks later. The Pacific was calm again. The world had moved on. Officially, the USS Liberty had suffered a classified systems failure. No mention of Harrison, no mention of Orof, No mention of Sigma-16. Alex Reeves was placed on indefinite administrative leave, pending review code for disappear quietly. Her small apartment in Coronado overlooked the same beach where she'd once trained until her feet bled. Now, the only sound was the ocean, soft, endless, indifferent. She sat at her desk, the classified drive spread before her like ghosts. The codes, the data, the evidence no one wanted to see. The world outside believed it was safe. But she knew better. When the knock came, she almost didn't answer. It was Hayes, same tired eyes, same half grin. "Didn't think I'd find you here," he said. "You always find me." He stepped inside, dropped a sealed envelope on her desk. "From Harrington." She didn't open it. "Let me guess, new orders." "Not exactly," he said. "More like an invitation." She frowned. "To what?" He met her gaze. "To keep fighting quietly. Sigma-16's not dead, but it's fractured. They need someone who understands how it moves, someone who's already inside their ghosts." She stared at him. "You want me to work for them?" "No," he said softly. "I want you to work against them from the inside." She leaned back, arms crossed. "You realize that's suicide?" He shrugged. So was becoming a SEAL. The envelope sat between them like a live wire. Alex turned toward the window, watching the sunset bleed across the horizon. "If I do this," she said quietly, "I'm not coming back." Hayes nodded. "You were never really back, Alex. You've just been surviving." She looked down at the envelope again. Then slowly, deliberately, she opened it. Inside was a single document, no heading, no seal, just one line. "Project Valkyrie authorized." She exhaled. "You ever wonder where this ends, Hayes?" He smiled faintly. "Where all ghosts end, in silence." She nodded slowly. "Then let's make sure that silence means something." That night Alex walked down to the beach. The moon hung low, silvering the waves. The sand was cold beneath her boots. She stood where she'd once trained as a recruit, where she'd once watched her father's shadow vanish into the surf. She closed her eyes, hearing his voice again, not loud but steady, patient, human. "Courage isn't loud, Alex. It's the quiet decision to do what no one will ever thank you for." For the first time, she understood what he'd meant. She reached into her pocket, pulled out the small black drive Rodriguez had given her, the access codes to Sigma-16's failsafe. She stared at it for a long time, then threw it into the ocean. The splash was small. The sea swallowed it whole. Some truths, she realized, don't need to be exposed. They just need to stop existing. Behind her, Hayes called softly, "You sure about that?" She turned, a faint smile breaking through the weariness. "No, but maybe certainty, overrated." He nodded. "Then what now?" She looked back at the horizon. "Now we disappear like they taught us, but on our own terms." The waves rolled in, erasing her footprints as fast as she made them. And for once, Alex Reeves didn't fight it. 2 months later, a classified file crossed Admiral Harrington's desk. No sender, no origin traceable. He opened it. Inside were surveillance photos of men and women meeting in abandoned warehouses across 3 continents. Each one bore the same insignia, a trident split down the center. A single line was written at the bottom. Sigma-16 terminated, Project Valkyrie active, Operative Spectre. Harrington exhaled slowly, then smiled, half pride, half fear. "Godspeed, Lieutenant Reeves," he whispered. The sea was calm again. But somewhere out there, in the spaces between nations and loyalties, a ghost had chosen her own side. And for the first time, the silence didn't feel like surrender. It felt like peace. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts. What happens to a soldier when the war no longer has a name? The room smelled of salt, gun oil, and time. Somewhere far below, engines hummed, steady, endless, anonymous. Alex Reeves hadn't used her real name in 6 months. The world believed she was dead, lost at sea after a training accident. That was the point. Now she was Spectre, the first operative of Project Valkyrie, the ghost who hunted ghosts. Her reflection in the cabin window looked like someone else. Hair shorter, eyes older, skin marked by the faint scar where Orof's bullet had grazed her ribs. Behind those eyes was silence, not peace yet, just quiet earned by exhaustion. The mission briefing lay open on the table, a cluster of red dots across the map: Cairo, Warsaw, Anchorage, Karachi. Remnants of Sigma-16, cells that refused to die. Every mark on that map was a promise she'd made to herself. She touched the last dot, Karachi, the port city that now hid the final handler. Her voiceover softened, almost a whisper. They say closure is a myth, but some debts demand a witness. The city was alive with rain and traffic, neon lights cutting through diesel fog. Alex walked the narrow streets disguised as a logistics officer for a private security firm. Every alley smelled of metal and monsoon water. Her contact was a fisherman who owed Hayes a favor. He handed her a waterproof satchel. Inside, a dossier, a burner phone, and a name written in block letters. V. Orof, status, in custody transfer. Location, KPT Dock 47. She froze. Orof alive. Rodriguez had said the CIA took him to a black site. Apparently, the world still needed its monsters. Her heart thudded once, slow and heavy. If the devil's still breathing, she thought, maybe God's giving me a second chance. At Dock 47, floodlights turned rain into silver needles. A cargo vessel loomed against the pier, engines rumbling. Guards patrolled with bored precision. Alex crouched behind a crate, scanning patterns, calculating lines of sight. Same as before, just quieter now. 2 guards broke formation. She moved. 3 seconds, 2 shots suppressed, bodies down unseen. She reached the loading bay, slipping through the open hatch. Inside, steel corridors, humming generators, the low murmur of voices. She followed the sound down 2 decks, past containers labeled agricultural equipment. But inside one of them, a faint light glowed through the vent slats. Alex pried the latch. The door hissed open. Victor Orof sat chained to a chair. Same calm eyes, thinner now but untouched by time. He smiled. I wonder which ghost they'd send. She leveled her pistol. Stand up. He didn't move. Do you really want to end this, Lieutenant? You've already killed the idea once. It just grew back. You don't get to define ideas anymore. He tilted his head. Don't I? Project Valkyrie, that's your creation, isn't it? A new name for the same disease. She frowned. What are you talking about? He chuckled softly. Valkyrie was Sigma-16's contingency plan. If we fell, the system would rebirth itself through whoever destroyed us. You inherited our code, our contacts, even our funding. You are the network now. Her stomach tightened. You're lying. He leaned forward, chains rattling. Look around, Alex. Who gave you that mission file? Who funds a ghost with no name, no record, no oversight? Do you think justice runs on purity? His words cut like static in her skull. They'll spin this story until it forgets you. Rodriguez's warning echoed. Orof smiled faintly. See, you don't destroy the machine, you become it. Lightning flashed outside the hull, throwing both their faces into stark relief. Predator and prey blurred into one shape. For a heartbeat, she wanted to end it, to pull the trigger and silence him forever. But something stopped her, her father's voice faint as a tide. Don't fight fire with its reflection. She lowered the weapon. Maybe you're right, maybe I am the system now, but systems can still evolve. She holstered the pistol, stepped closer, and pressed a tranquilizer patch to his neck. His smile faded. Evolution, he whispered, still eats its children. He slumped forward, unconscious. Hours later, in a dim safe house near the port, Alex uploaded a secure file to an anonymous satellite channel. Inside were the full archives of Project Valkyrie locations, names, bank trails, everything. The upload bar climbed inch by inch. When it reached 100%, she deleted every trace of her identity from the drive. Name, Spectre. Status, deceased. Then she poured herself a small cup of tea, watching dawn crawl across the city skyline. Somewhere behind her, the TV flickered to life, breaking news. Anonymous whistleblower exposes covert operations tied to naval intelligence. Multiple resignations reported. She turned off the screen. For the first time she smiled, not victory, relief. A week later, in a hidden facility under Langley, Admiral Harrington stared at a blank terminal. "Who leaked it?" one aide asked. He exhaled slowly. "Someone who learned what her father never could. That truth isn't loyalty, it's mercy." Back in Karachi, Alex walked through the bustling market wearing civilian clothes. No weapons, no comms. She felt the sun on her face, the noise, the laughter, ordinary life. Something she hadn't felt in years. Hayes' voice echoed in her memory. Maybe silence can mean peace. Maybe he was right. She stopped by a vendor selling old postcards. Among them, a faded one showed an American destroyer slicing through calm water, the USS Liberty. She bought it, flipped it over, and wrote 4 words. "He finally rests now." She left it on the counter and kept walking. Weeks passed. News outlets buzzed about Project Valkyrie, about corruption, resignations, reforms. No one ever found out who the whistleblower was. The world moved on, but quieter now, a little more cautious. On a remote island off Guam, an unmarked grave overlooked the ocean. The headstone bore no name, just the sealed trident carved in granite. Alex stood before it in civilian clothes, hair caught by the wind. She placed her father's insignia at the base and whispered, "You were right. Some wars aren't meant to be won, just ended." A gull cried overhead. The sea glittered with morning light. Behind her, footsteps approached. Hayes. "You really vanished," he said softly. "No comms, no trace." "I'm done being a ghost," she said. He smiled. "Then what are you now?" She looked out at the horizon. "A witness." He nodded. "World still needs those." They stood in silence, wind, waves, memory. That night in her small cabin overlooking the ocean, Alex wrote in a plain notebook, no encryption, no mission codes, just words. "To whoever finds this. If you're reading, it means the silence held. Don't mistake peace for absence. It's the hardest kind of presence. I used to believe strength was about endurance. Now I think it's about release. My father died for a truth I never understood. I live for one he never got to see. Mercy doesn't weaken us. It saves what's left of us." She closed the notebook, tucked it under a loose floorboard, and stepped outside. The night air smelled of salt and rain. Far on the horizon, lightning danced, distant but harmless now. Alex whispered, half to herself, half to the wind, "The only easy day was yesterday." Then she laughed, quiet, human, free. Months later, somewhere in an underground server farm, a lone file blinked awake. User Spectre. Status dormant. Last entry. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts. The screen faded to black. And with that, the world went quiet, not out of fear, but because, for once, it finally could.